Hello there fellow acolytes of Sega Saturn, welcome to another episode of Saturn Gems. The series where we look at a bunch of different gems for the Sega Saturn, from Japanese games to Western games, expensive games to cheap games, and of course we've got hidden gems and quite well known games too. Hopefully there's something there for everybody. This month we have another cracker with 5 fantastic games for the Sega Saturn, so let's jump straight in. The first game on my list is Rouka ni Ichidant-R. Now my pronunciation of that is probably terrible, but as you can tell, it's a Japanese exclusive Saturn title, and it was actually released under the Sega Ages banner. The game's actually a compilation of 2 games, Puzzle Action Ichidant-R and Quiz Rouka ni Tatensensai. I'm probably pronouncing these completely terribly, but I will include in the information below the actual name, so you'll be able to find it a little bit easier. Anyway, as you would expect from a quiz game, the latter title is more or less unplayable to anybody with that firm grasp of Japanese. From what I gather, there are various different areas, possibly topics to choose from, and you have to answer a series of multiple choice questions. Once you reach the end of each section, you unlock part of a time machine and play a crappy little bonus game. It involves catching stuff from the sky. You know what, even if you just brute force the questions, the bonus game and cutscenes just aren't worth the effort, to be honest. However, the former game, which you might have actually realised from the title, is actually a precursor to Secondo Arakutoa Sandoaru, which is not only a game that I've covered in a past Gems episode, but it also won a Game of the Year award from me in 2018. This game works in a very similar vein, and of course I love it for that. Unlike Secondo, there's only one arcade mode to choose from, and the levels are presented in a much more linear fashion. Still has a roulette of games to choose from, with a wide selection of crazy games to work through. There's shooting down UFOs, memorising gunshots, slamming on the brakes of a high-speed car before it plummets off a cliff. You know, there's just a huge selection of WarioWare style micro games to experience, and the games are just as crazy and fun as in Secondo. So if you enjoyed that game, you should enjoy this pretty much just as much. You can select each minigame through the second option in the main menu to practice if you're struggling to work one of them out. Most of them are doable with a bit of clever thinking, but unfortunately not all of them. There's at least one that I've encountered so far which, involves a bat that hides in a coffin, and you use clues to locate it. The problem is there's a lot of coffins and the clue is in Japanese. It's not a game breaker because you can just time the roulette to avoid that game, which isn't too difficult, so it is easily avoidable. All in all, the game is a blast to play with, and much like Secondo, it's also dirt cheap to pick up. This is definitely one for your collections. The next game on my list is The Mansion of Hidden Souls. Mansion's an FMV game, and it takes place in a mansion full of spirits that inhabit the bodies of butterflies. You play as Juno, which is one of the residents in the mansion, one of the butterflies, and you need to solve the mystery of just what the hell is going on inside the mansion and why the moon has gone blood red. Despite the almost identical name, The Mansion of Hidden Souls is actually a sequel to the game on the Mega CD, which was called Mansion of Hidden Souls, without the article. It's not actually a port. It seems confusing since the only difference is the lack of a definitive article in the predecessor, but I suppose it's not any worse than like modern day games using the original name. I'm looking at you, Tomb Raider, Doom and Prey for just a few examples. Anyway, I'm digressing. As an FMV game, Mansion is focused primarily on story. In fact, it's totally based on story, because there's extremely little threat, and there's not even really any puzzles to solve. You work your way around the mansion, you talk to the residents, and the story unfolds. Whilst you need to give specific answers a lot of the time, failure usually just results in having to re-enter the room and go through the conversation again. In that respect, it's kind of more like a modern day walking simulator than an actual game. It's not a long game, nor is it a particularly difficult game, but there is a lot of charm to the story and the world contained within, which keeps you interested. It's not super expensive too, so it's definitely worth picking up if you like these kind of story-driven experiences. Whilst I enjoy my time with it, I realise this isn't probably for everyone, but I'd still consider it a gem. Next up is a game that reminds me of one of my favourite Saturn titles, Shinobi X. It's actually based off a Japanese TV period drama, and this game is Hisatsu. Despite being based off a TV show, the game is actually surprisingly good. It's a side-scrolling game in the vein of something like Shinobi, and you've got 4 ninjas to choose from. From what I gather, there are a bunch of assassins, and each one has a different weapon setup. The main guy carries a sword and acts pretty much how you'd expect. There's another fellow who just punches people and has the ability to form a Hadouken for whatever reason. Another dude has a knife to stab people, or he can throw his knife. Another has a bit of rope and uses it like a kind of whip, like one of the Belmonts. Anyway, all these characters play differently, and they have moves that act as special attacks, such as the Hadouken I mentioned before, and they use a part of an energy bar for your specials. Personally, I find the sword dude and the whip dude to be the best, because the other two seem to have quite pathetic range, but I'm sure there are people out there who like the others. For the most part, you'll be doing some pretty light platforming, and a fair amount of combat as you work your way through the different locations and find your targets. The first couple of levels are pretty linear, after which they get quite open and allow you to make your own path through to the end. It's definitely a lot more open than the likes of Shinobi, even if that platforming that's on offer isn't quite as tight. There are bosses, but none of them are too inventive, and there are others that don't even fight you at all. They rely on their bodyguards to protect them. Whilst I like the crazier bosses that you'd find in games like Shinobi, I'm guessing these magical bosses probably wouldn't fit within the game and aren't indicative of the TV show, so I don't really see it as that much of a problem. Whilst the game doesn't look amazing for the Saturn, it does have a very cool aesthetic to it. It contains very stylish cutscenes to bookmark the levels, and the animations too are pretty good. Not amazing, but pretty good. Where the game truly shines though is the music. The game has music that sounds like it's straight from a Japanese western. Presumably it's music from the TV show, but regardless it's fantastic, and stands out as maybe the best soundtrack of a Saturn game, or at least from the games that I've played so far. Anyway, Hisatsu isn't the best game I've played, but it's still a pretty good action platformer that fans of Shinobi should dig. The game's starting to rise in price too, but isn't overly expensive. If it's something that interests you, I recommend picking up sooner rather than later, because I can see this one skyrocketing in price over the coming years. Something a little bit different now, we have SimCity 2000, a game that should need very little introduction for people in my generation. I think most people in my age have either played this game or another in the series, probably on the PC. But how does the Saturn game hold up? Well, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, since there are probably people out there that aren't familiar with the series. SimCity 2000 is a city building game. You need to build and run a city. You sort everything from roads, water, electricity, to things like housing and even making monuments. You start from scratch and you build your city from the ground up, and there's also a wide range of existing cities that you can manage and deal with oncoming disasters in a sort of a challenge type mode. The Saturn version uses the Z button to access the construction menu, and holding the A button allows you to control the camera around with the D-pad. They adapted the PC controls to Saturn rather well, unlike something like Lemmings 3D, which I had particular problems with. Building things is relatively simple to do, and the lack of a mouse never seems to be too problematic. The faults in this version lie in the frame rate, which is best described as choppy, and the requirement for the best part of 500 blocks to save. I recommend having the action replay card to back up your city if you don't want to use it. Despite these issues, the game is still a lot of fun to play, and it's a really cheap price too. The frame rate can be problematic, but if you zoom into the action, which I recommend doing anyway because it's easier to do things up close, the frame rate does improve. Somewhat. You can also use a Saturn mouse to control the game, which I imagine makes things a little easier, but I've not been able to test it. Let's face it though, if you want to use a mouse, you just play the PC version. As such, what we have here is a nice curiosity for Saturn aficionados. It's certainly entertaining enough to justify a purchase, but if you want the smoothest performance, then stick to the PC version. The final game on this list, and my pick for this month, is KO Flying Squadron 2. Oh my god, I'm so surprised by how damn good this is. It looked like a slow, average platformer from the bits and pieces I saw, so I wasn't particularly eager to grab it. However, I got it as part of a Japanese Saturn bundle for a pretty dirt cheap price, so I jumped to the opportunity. God, I'm glad I did. The game's predominantly a platforming game. You control like a girl in a bunny suit, and you take down a bunch of raccoons. There's a story involving like some mystical spheres you need to recover, but to be honest it's something just to frame the game around. I have the Japanese version and the story really isn't that important. I'm sure it's fine if you have the English version, but you don't lose anything by not being able to understand what's being said. The bunny girl moves a bit like Buster from the Tiny Toons game for the Mega Drive. Your normal pace is like a jaunty walk, but then you quickly accelerate into a sprint after a short time. This run can help with some of the platforming, or allow you to take various shortcuts. There's also a variety of weapons in the game, from a bow and arrow to a mallet, the latter of which is actually my personal favourite, and the weapons work a little bit like the rings in a Sonic game. If you get hit, you drop your weapon. However, you can pick it up again. If you get hit while you don't have a weapon, you lose a life. If you don't have a weapon, then you can always jump on the enemies, Sonic or even Mario style. The game has a beautiful aesthetic, comparable to the likes of Rockman 8, with stage themes that are very unique and extremely Japanese. The levels are also full of fun gimmicks to vary stuff up. One level has you picking up a giant hand that you can use to prod a button, another has you swimming around, and there are even shmup sections that are quite reminiscent to the Mega CD original. They're dotted around to, keep everything feeling a bit fresh. The enemies look great too, kinda weird, but the bosses are the real standout. One boss starts out looking the same as the level 1 boss from Shinobi X. As you fight, it'll drop a mask and change form, one of which is a geisha that drops parts of his face off, another's a Japanese guy who has his eyes kinda distorted for some reason. It's so insane, and yet it's very fun to fight. The variety in the game and the bosses is very reminiscent to the 16-bit treasure platformers, and to be honest this game is kinda what I expected Silhouette Mirage to be like. The music too is consistently good, and you'll be humming it along while you play, and even after you finish. It's not a cheap game to buy though, especially if you buy the English version, which goes for a fair amount. The Japanese version is a lot cheaper to buy, still pricey but definitely more affordable. If this game sounds like a cup of tea, I would definitely recommend picking it up. Maybe on the pricier side, but it's definitely a title you'll have a great time with. It's a true Saturn masterpiece. So, those were the 5 games we covered this time. We had Rouka ni Ichidant-R, I think. Mansion of Hidden Souls, SimCity 2000, Hisatsu, and KO Flying Squadron 2. 5 pretty damn good games to be honest, and it's games that you may or may not have in your collection. If you do, drop a comment below and let me know what you think of them. If not, then why not pick one of them up or even suggest your own game. Thanks a lot for watching everyone, and I'll see you next time. Bye.